I wasn't dealing with the TikTokers telling you to, to get, 8 Airbnbs at the time. Like maybe maybe I would have made the wrong decision too, right? At that time when, I'm less experienced. But I made the right decision at that time. But that's what people have to look at. It's like when the market's going crazy, the minute the realtor tells you, hey, you don't have time to do any comparables, put in a bid over ask right now. It's like, that's your red flag. It's like,
that's the time point. You need to step back and say, whoa, hang on a minute. Am I going to take my financial advice and my future into the hands of some guy who just wants to make a sale, right? Like his future is dependent upon me buying this thing. Yeah. And
then the other cases, these people, getting margined out is I look at that. It's like to get $1 million mortgage, they had to have $250,000 in household income. How many of those were mortgage fraud? You know what I mean? Like
oh man,
full stop. Some of those ones that are getting margined out right now, it's like how many of them had fake income?
Mortgage fraud is a big problem right now. Like the government is changing legislation right now surrounding mortgage fraud, and there's a big announcement and training stuff going on now for mortgage brokers because they're having to, because it's very, very tough for people to qualify. So they're fudging their numbers and providing fake, revenue and income statements, and it's become a big problem. So it's a real thing.
I mean, we're never going to get that. We're never going to get that number. We're never going to know the number. What percentage of the people now are going to get foreclosed on had inflated, fraudulent income when they qualified for the mortgage to begin with? It's not a 0%, and I would be very comfortable going out on a limb and say it's not single digits. A number of the people who, because if you're only qualifying using 39% of your income and you're stress tested 2 points over, it's like something dramatic has to change in your life in order to not qualify. It's like you got to get laid off from the job, right? It's also the point where you have to understand, it's like your income. It's where are you in your career trajectory? Have you just got the biggest promotion and you got some crazy job with a tech company and all of a sudden you're making $200K a year? You've never made $200K a year. And if you get laid off from that $200K a year, there's no one else who's paying that rate. That's pretty big risk, right? As opposed to, you're a second year HVAC technician. And in 4 years, in 2 more years, you're going to get your journeyman. Your income is going up. It's not likely to go down. And there's a dozen different companies out there who would hire you at the same rate. And so you have to understand, it's like, am I right at the peak of the mountain? I got nowhere else to go but down in terms of my income level. It's like, well, yeah, maybe that's the point where maybe 39% can be even aggressive. But for most people, that's not the case. Like, most people are going to increase their level of income. So if they legitimately qualify with 39% of their income, that's stress tested 2 points over. And so really it's less than 39% of their income. The probability of them getting margined out is pretty low. Like that's why the rules exist, right? That's why they made those rules. And so I look at the people, it's like, okay, they're getting margined out of their $1 million house in Toronto. It's like, did they really have $250K of income? Where did it come from, right? I would love to know that number. Of course, we'll never know, right? But the whole point is like, how do you qualify for that? And then the other point where we talk about it in the boot camp is various offsets that you can get. And so the offsets are important. The main one that most people don't think about is like a legal suite in your house. So a legal suite, it's kind of one of the hacks in the mortgage system in Canada. Is a lot of lenders can offset their mortgage payment. They can use 100% of the income from a legal suite. So whether that's the basement suites in Alberta or the laneway homes in BC or Ontario, they can use 100% of their income to offset the mortgage payment. And so that means the same person making $100,000 a year who buys a house with a legal suite can often, instead of getting, 446, they can get 546. That's not an unusual scenario. And the laneway homes in other jurisdictions where the rental rates are higher, it's like you could get, it's not unusual to see an extra 200,000, if that's something you can rent out for $3,000 a month or something like that. So that's a big deal, right? And then the other one is, like, people don't understand, is like, how do they get to a second property? They can get to a second property because often they can offset the rental income, a portion of the rental income. Generally you're not going to get 70%. Think, 50 to 80%, depending on the lender you're dealing with. But you can get 50 to 80% against the potential rental income. So going from property 1 to property 2. Mm-hmm. This is why it's very, very important in Canada, right? Whereas, because there's really no provision. You can sell your principal residence tax-free in Canada still today. I don't know if that's going to be
as of this podcast on August 2nd, 2024.
I don't know if that's going to be forever. But like, knowing this chart, it's kind of important, right? Knowing this chart's important. Knowing the potential offsets of rental income, whether that's legal suite income or true rental property income, what you can actually get offsets for, so you can borrow more money than what's here. But you also have to look at what am I borrowing? What's my income level? Is my income level likely to increase? And then the test I like to use is, what's your liquid assets? Okay, look at that monthly payment.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Look at that monthly payment, and the test I like to use is, do I have 24 months in that monthly payment in liquid assets that I can cash in? Okay, look at that. That's 24 months. Liquid assets. Think dividend-paying stocks, gold, and Bitcoin. Okay, do I have 24 months of that saved in that? It's like, okay, then the next is, do I have 48 months? I got 48 months. So that means my stocks could get cut in half, and I could still make those mortgage payments for 2 years. And so here's how, I guarantee you, when Dave Ramsey blew up, he didn't have 48 months of liquid assets saved. Like,
no, otherwise it wouldn't have blown up, right?
He had all the liquid assets, okay? And so I refuse to tell the average Canadian that you're too stupid to learn this. It takes some work. It's harder than it should be. It should be easier to just earn and save, but unfortunately, the system is set up to move the wealth from the people who earn and save to the people who borrow to invest. And one of the easiest access to credit that the average individual in Canada can get is on real estate. The banks want to lend to real estate. It's terrible. It's like they should be more agreeable to lending to businesses, but they're just not financially rewarded to do so. We have a major housing shortage, and they just look at the risks of lending to a small business and the risks of lending in real estate, and it just doesn't make sense to them. And so they're going to lend on real estate, and that's where their preference is to be. Even in businesses, if they're lending to businesses, most of the businesses are lending big bucks to own real estate in that business, and that's why the bank is more comfortable to lend it, right? So we have to learn how to use these, study this chart, and learn, like, how do we walk up the property ladder. And once you understand, it's like, okay, I can only qualify for a $200,000 place. It's like, okay, great. So now you have to learn to build wealth after that too. So you qualify for that $200,000 place, or you need to scrape together the 446, and you find a place with a legal suite, and now I can generate some rental income. It's like, okay, now you got to deploy that capital into something else that goes up, because the chances that you're going to earn and save your way up the property ladder, it's not going to happen, because those prices are going up year by year faster than your income.
Yes, yeah. There's no way that you can do that, like, realistically on like a regular salary.
Yeah. So we have that, and then we see the market updates here. I'll just touch on the big mecca. The Toronto is down 4.6%, and it's the tale of two stories. We're talking about the prices out west, and the prices out west are especially in Alberta, like we're cooking right now. Like things are busy, property is moving, rents up, prices are up, influx of migration, but you can see the outflow here in Toronto. It's like, they're down 4.6%, right? And you can see a lot of the larger centers in Ontario, also a lot of red on that chart, okay? So that is affecting, and someone who bought, so when you hear someone, they bought a house for 1.5 million and now it's only worth $1 million. It's like, they bought the wrong house, okay? Because really, if you bought a house for $1 million, it's like, maybe it's worth $950 now, right? Like that would be kind of par for the course, right? And so you following those market trends, that's not so bad. It's like, you have to understand, assets don't go up in a straight line. That's not how this thing works, right? Most of the people with the 20 to 30%, it's like, you start looking at what they did. It's like they bought it like hundreds of thousands over list, 4 hours after it went on the market. It's like, what were you doing, man?
Not thinking.
What were you doing? But you have some empathy too, because I look at some of the advice that they're getting, right? And it's like they're trying to parse it together. It's like it's like real estate's going up forever, buy as much as possible. And you got, on the other hand, you got, Dave Ramsey saying never take $1 in debt, right? I don't know how they reconcile the fact that they can have some mortgages because they're okay with some level of mortgage. Like, man, debt is either bad or it's not, right? And so they're kind of admitting to themselves that there is a healthy level of debt, but they're not really explaining why, right? And so ultimately, look at the Canadian market, and you can kind of see it as a whole. It's like we have a 1 month change in real estate, basically flat, 0.1%. Let's call that a statistical anomaly. But as a country as a whole, it's, we're down 3.6% in the real estate market over a 1 year. It's like, man, stop thinking in terms of 1 year. It's like, you're trying to think, like, how am I trying to build wealth over decades? And when you buy places, like, these are like my asset tests, and it blows people's mind. It's like my asset test, I've told people, I've developed this over time, is don't buy assets that you wouldn't be willing to hold for 100 years. Like, I don't buy assets that I wouldn't be willing to hold. And that blows people's minds. It's like, I'm not going to be alive in 100 years. I'm not a vampire. I was like, I don't think that's going to happen. But do I reasonably think that my grandkids could inherit this asset and get some value from it, right? Do I think the property that I own, they can continue to collect some rental income on it? It's like, okay, that's important. Not, do I think I can buy a pre-con condo and flip it in a year because prices are magically going to go up? It's like, that's, like, it could work, but that's an inherently risky transaction. Right?
Extremely risky. I mean, speculating on real estate, because you don't know what's coming down the pipe. You don't know what's going to happen, geopolitically or what happens with the energy prices and all of this stuff. So it's very risky. And I was going to make a statement earlier, like, when we're talking about, re-upping real estate and investing in it, it's not like you're going to invest in real estate today and start earning some rental income, and then tomorrow you're going to get rental unit number 2. No, This is like a 10-year path before you're moving on to property number 2, depending on your situation. It's not like an overnight thing. So, when Josh is giving this advice, it's not an instantaneous thing. And because people are into the get rich quick, I want to make this move fast, I want things to happen right now. It's like, okay, you buy it and then you start, building this nest egg out. And then when you're ready and you have it all set up 10 years later, then you can, refinance that house and get into, unit number 2. Like, it's a path. It's a slow and steady path, but it's a sure path. I'd rather get rich for sure than get rich quick.
Yeah. I mean, we walk it through in the boot camp. It's like, how do we get to the second door? And we walk it through on median income. We're not walking it through on some high income, you got to blow up your business. Like, do we try to teach people how to blow up their business? But we also know that different people are going to have different skills in their business. Like, building $1 million business is very difficult. Not everyone's going to get a multiple 6-figure incomes. Like, some people are going to have to make wise financial decisions on a median income. And we walk them through a path of, starting out in a condo and getting to a single family house in 10 years. And basically having 3 doors. And we walk people through that path in the boot camp. You start with that the condo, the 2-bedroom condo, you can rent out the room in the 2-bedroom condo, and then you can buy the single family house, with the legal suite after, and now you have, 3 doors, one that you're living in, 2 that paying you, and you walked up the ladder, with no more than median income. And it works. And it's slow, and it's boring, and it's get rich for sure, not get rich quick.